Today I'm going to show you how I mark and cut the slots on a cigar box guitar fingerboard. So I've got my grain-filled and sanded and stained fingerboard ready to go. I've got the 25-inch scale fret template from CB Giddy Crafter Supply, 25-inch scale, 24 frets. Not sure I'm going to be putting that many frets on this one, but they're there. I'm going to mark all of 24. I've got the fret saw miter box, the fret saw, some Scotch tape. I'll show you where that comes in just a second. A square, a mechanical pencil. I use that because it makes a very small line, not very wide, and it doesn't leave a lot of wiggle room as far as like wondering where exactly the line is to cut the fret. And a decent cup of joe is recommended, preferably percolator, but hey, whatever you like. So these templates, they come in a big sheet, so you have to cut them out. And, you know, I cut it sort of roughly on this bottom side because I knew I was going to be using this edge to mark the frets. That's just my preference. I guess you could do it either way. Just really took my time to make sure I got that as exact as possible. And then here on the nut, I actually folded this back because what I do is I find the end of my fingerboard. This is not easy to do one-handed. When you're not holding a phone, it's much easier, I assure you. I fold it back and make sure it's real tight, and then I'll take small pieces of that Scotch tape to attach this to the wood all the way down. And I'll show you how this works here in a second. Just have it like a little bit from the edge, and that's how I mark the frets. So I'm gonna hold this right here. Take a really small piece of tape, mostly because I don't want to put so much tape on my template that it gets torn up when I remove it. And just put a little bit of tape right there. Just line it up a little bit. Line it up with the edge so there's, you know, just a small amount of wood sticking out. Put another little piece of tape right here. And probably hear my washing machine going in the background. It's laundry day here at Cigar Box Gus Manor. Another little bit of tape, and for good measure, we'll pop another one down here, and kind of double check it to make sure it's sticking down everywhere it needs to be sticking down. And that is attached. My next step is I'm just going to go along here with my mechanical pencil and just try to get, like, make a very small tick where each fret is. And these are pretty thin lines, but still kind of strive for getting it right in the middle of that printed line. I'm not sure if I'm going to slot all these. Maybe I will. Just this is actually kind of a practice fingerboard for me anyway, because it's been a long time since I've made one of these, so I might goober this up real good for y'all. So now I've got my little tick marks where all the frets are going to go. Next step is to get my square and my pencil and just go along and make sure this thing is tight up against, you see it? Yeah. Tight up against the other edge of the fingerboard. Get that line really exact. A little bit more light would help. Make sure you got a well-lit area when you're doing this. It definitely helps. But basically just go along and line up all of these with your little pencil ticks, and and here's the all the lines on the fingerboard all marked off. So the next thing I'm going to do is start cutting the slots for the frets. And the thing to remember with that is, you know, this is a piece of the fret wire. If you can see that the part that goes into the wood, the tang, is not super deep. You don't need to cut like a really big groove in there. I'm actually going to do a few practice cuts down at the end of the fingerboard that I'm not using, just to kind of get a feel for how many times I got to push and pull the little saw to get it to the right depth. And then once I figure that out, it's kind of, I can use that and just kind of go all down the fingerboard. And I actually like, since I don't use the high frets as much, I'll actually start with the highest frets and basically practice those, and then hopefully, you know, if I'm a little wonky at first, get better at it as I go down to the frets that come up a lot more often, so that by the time I'm south of the 12th fret, I'm, you know, doing everything more or less right. So I'm gonna start that now. So down here at this end, I'm gonna make my first couple of practice cuts. Okay, so that's not quite deep enough. I'm just gonna do another one right here. And when I'm using this miter box, I'm making sure that it's pressed firmly against the edge closest to me, and I'm holding it down pretty tight with the hand that I'm not sawing with. I should probably count this time so I can maybe keep track. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh yeah, that'll do it. So on this particular piece of wood with my particular saw, it takes about 10 pairs of push-pull with the saw. So that's the number I'll be keeping in mind while I do these actual frets. And I like to put the saw in and just line it up with the, so I'm right on top of my pencil line, and I'm going to cut the 24th. I guess I'm cutting all 24 frets today. If that's too many for whatever cigar box I end up using this one with, I will just saw it off, basically. Wish it wasn't squeaking like that. That's horrible. Another tip I just kind of remembered, or at least it works for me, when I get the saw lined up with the line, with my fret line, hold everything down really firmly and actually start the saw away from me. Press down a little bit on the saw, a little bit of pressure, and just cut the first line by pulling it towards me. And then I've got my groove in the exact spot I need it to be. And then the rest of the sawing, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, that will be, the groove is already started and it'll stay in place. This is the slotted fingerboard. I just, did all 24 frets. Not quite sure about the placement of the 4th fret, so I'm going to go ahead and go with it. I just maybe can't play anything in a major key. But overall, I'm happy with how well it went for being my first attempt in a couple years. So now I'm going to start putting on tapping in the frets. So I've got my fret wire. This is all stuff from CB Giddy Crafter Supply. I've got my fret hammer. I'll be using the soft end of this, not the hard end. The things to snip the ends off. And then once I'm done putting them all in, I've got my fret file to make the edges nice and smooth. So let's get into it. So I'm basically gonna line that up, line up the tang with the slot, and then just give it a couple taps. And that's in pretty good. Then when I snip it off, I do so at a kind of an angle, just to make it much easier to file later. A little tougher than I remembered. And be careful when you do this, because until you file that down, that's pretty darn sharp. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and pre-snip this to make it easier. So I told you wrong earlier. I'm not going to use that full piece of fret wire the whole way down and then snip it off. It's actually easier to just kind of roughly, I wasted a little bit of it, but it's easier to do it this way. That was me not remembering what I did last time. So I've got some of the frets hammered in. I'm going to go ahead and finish the rest of these. Sometimes you have to, tap them in again because they'll start to pull up or whatever. I've snipped them all, but these are sticking out really far and they're extremely sharp, so you have to be careful. I'm actually going to take a regular file, because this metal's pretty soft, and kind of pre-file them a little bit and try to not damage my wood before I use the... This is the file that's for doing the edges of the frets, and you basically run it along your fingerboard. You can do it this way. I like to try to round it, so I change the angle slightly when I'm using this. But that'll be kind of the finishing touches, and then I will have a completed fingerboard. So this is the part where building cigar box guitars sucks. I've got all the frets hammered in, and there is a problem with the 4th fret. I cannot get a fret wire to take there. It's just loose. I must have cut the slot too wide or something. Also, I was trying to file these down. I was using this file. What I basically did there was I forgot that I actually have a few rat tail files that are a lot narrower and a lot easier to control, and just used that big dumb old rusty file to try to file down the edges of the frets and damaged my wood. And this. And I don't know if you can see, but I've managed to dig into the wood, which, I mean, it's not a huge deal, but, I wanted this to look good, look decent at least. And there's some other frets that are, not really working. So this one, unfortunately, is a learning experience. But it happens sometimes. Gonna just move on to, I have 2 more ready to go, so I'm gonna move on to those and try to put some frets on those things. See you next time.